May the peace of our Divine Master Jesus be with us, and His light shine upon us. It is with great pleasure that I'm here with the Spiritist Society of North Beach to talk about a topic that is very dear to my heart. And I would like to thank Abigail and Leah for the invitation. Just a moment I have, so I don't forget anything. This presentation is part of a project that Bezerra de Menezes Spiritist Society started about 2 years ago to help us understand our relationship and responsibility towards our animal, lesser brothers. And our goal with this presentation is to share the Spiritist teachings, in views regarding this topic, regarding animals and Spiritism, through talks, blogging, and other means. You will notice that during the whole presentation, we will always bring science and Spiritism. And I will ask your indulgence that there are many excerpts, many passages, many quotes that I will share with you, and I will read them during this presentation. So let's go forward. Emmanuel, in the book O Consolador, The Consoler, published in 1940 through the blessed mediumistic faculties of Francisco Cândido Xavier. And he wrote the following. It's a marvelous book, but because we are talking about animals, that's what we are going to bring. He wrote, "Animals are our lesser brothers. They, like us, come from afar through ceaseless and redemptive struggles, and are, like us, candidates for a brilliant position in the eternal life." So, what Emmanuel meant by that? Why he called the animals our lesser brothers? He said that they come from afar. How far back? So there are so many questions only on this quote from Emmanuel, and that's what we are going to try to answer during this whole presentation. Try to understand what he is revealing to us. I'm so used with the mouse that I try to... All right. So, the expression lesser brothers was coined by Francis of Assisi. And if you know anything about Francis of Assisi, about this spirit, you'll know that he, by any means, it was intended to belittle the animals. Francis is one of the most venerated religious figures in history, born in Assisi, in Italy, in Middle Ages, but he became a friar. And friar in Latin means frater, brother. He founded a Franciscan order called Order of the Friars Minor. And he also referred to his followers as fraticelli, meaning, little brothers. So lesser minor or minor brother refers to those that are humble, simple, pure of heart. That's where this expression comes from. Francis of Assisi, for us Spiritists, is known to be the reincarnation of John the Evangelist. He participated in the Spiritist codification, among many other enlightened spirits. And there are many groups around the world that receive the spiritual patronage of Francis of Assisi. So it's not a coincidence that Emmanuel chose to refer to the animals in this manner. So for this presentation, we select the topic, animal soul. Do animals have a soul? What do you think? So raise your hand if you think we have, well, I would say 50, maybe 60%. It's a tough audience. I'll have to work hard here. But actually my intention is not to convince you, and I'll talk about that. But for us, if we assume that they have a soul, what is the origin? What is the nature and the destiny of this soul? What is the relationship between their soul and our souls? And what are the moral implications of this fact? So, as I said before, I have no intention to convince you of anything. In fact, Spiritism does not impose, its principle or views on anyone. It respects the people's freedom of conscience and thought. Our objective here is to share Spiritism views on this subject. Saying that, I will invite you to listen with an open mind and draw your own conclusions at the end. Do animals have a soul? Pythagoras, the great Greek philosopher and mathematician, who lived 2,500 years ago, he believed that. He also believed that he believed that they share the privilege. It's saying the same thing. But he also believed that religion and science were inseparably interconnected. For us, Spiritism, this sounds very familiar. Then we have Hippocrates, also an ancient Greek philosopher, but he was a physician and naturalist. He's one of the most outstanding figures in the history of medicine. He's called the father of medicine. He also believed animals had a soul. Then we have our friend here, James Alfred White. If having a soul means being able to feel love and loyalty and gratitude, then animals are better off than a lot of humans. James Alfred White is known better by his pen name, James Herriot. He was a British veterinary surgeon and writer, and he used his experiences, the stories as a veterinarian to write about animals and their owners. You may remember a British television series called All Creatures Great and Small. This is the author. He is the author. And here we have Anthony Douglas Williams, a Canadian writer, author of the book Inside the Divine Pattern. He wrote, "When I look into the eyes of an animal, I do not see an animal. I see a living being. I see a friend. I feel a soul." So I just gave you a few examples, of people that believe animals have a soul. So the question is, what is a soul? What is a soul? What do you think a soul is? Anybody? But that's the fun. I have all the answers. I don't ask questions that I don't have answers. If you Google it, you will find that one of the first, there are many definitions, but one of the first definitions is soul is the spiritual or immaterial part of a human being or animal regarded as immortal. And they use the word spirit as a synonym. So the next question is, what is a spirit? And we may have an idea of what it is. We can Google the word. But if we go to the Spirit's book, Kardec asked the high order spirits. I think not everybody is a spiritist here or is familiar with the books, but the Spirit's books contain a series of questions and answers. Kardec asks questions and the high order spirits answer. So I will refer to this many times. So in the question 134, Kardec asked, what is a soul? An incarnate spirit, answered the spirits. What was the soul before its union with the body? A spirit. Are souls and spirits therefore one and the same thing? Yes, a categoric yes. Souls are no more than spirits. Souls are no more than incarnate spirits. And then, in question 76, Kardec asked, how may we define spirits? In these spirits, we may say that spirits are the intelligent beings of creation. And further, on question 597, Kardec continues, is this principle, because we learn in this question that there is a principle that survives the body, so he asks, is this principle that survives the body a soul similar to that of humans? And they answer, it is a soul. However, it is much less evolved than that of humans. And then it comes the famous quote that between the souls of animals and humans, there is as great a difference as there is between the human soul and God. I will repeat. Between the souls of animals and humans, there is as great a difference as there is between the human soul and God. Well, this passage is quite unsettling because this may explain why my dog worships me, okay? But not why my cat thinks I should be the one worshiping him. And who have cats knows that. Terry Pratchett Terry Pratchett wrote that in ancient times, cats were worshipped as God, and they have not forgotten this. So maybe this is the reason. We can tell, exactly. So we have seen so far that the high spirits confirm that animals have souls. So we further try to figure out the nature, the origin, the nature, and the destiny of the soul. We have definitions of soul and spirit. Let's think about who and what are the animals. The word animal comes from the Latin anima, meaning breath, and animalis, meaning having breath. And we have, we have in the Old Testament, in the book of Genesis, we find a reference to breath. It reads like this: "The Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being." This is on Genesis 2:7, chapter 2, verse 7. So, first, a short comment on the word man. The Hebrew word originally used here was Adam. God formed Adam. Adam is typically translated as man. But Adam in this usage, it has a more generic, it's a generic noun, meaning mankind, and does not imply that the creation was a male. Also, the Hebrew word breath may be translated as breath, wind, and spirit. So if we abandon, literal interpretation of the book of Genesis in favor of a more symbolic, spiritual one, we can say that the supreme creator of the universe, or say, we can infer that used two elements to create man, Adam. First, from the very dust of the ground, from the material element available in the planet. Second, God breathed its own breath, the spiritual element, into the nostrils of Adam, and Adam became a living being. In the Spirit's book, chapter 2, The Knowledge and Origin of Things, we learn that there are three elements in the whole that comprise the principle of all that exists: God, Spirit, and matter. That they form this universal triad: God, the creator; Spirit, the intelligent principle or the spiritual element of creation; and matter, the material element, the primordial substance that Kardec named universal principle. So we can kind of compare and say that when God created the animals, it also used the matter, the dust of the ground, the material element, and breath, in the breath of God, the spiritual element. Like us, they have a material body and a spiritual body. The next, who are the animals? The animal kingdom is very diverse, and there are several characteristics that set us or animals apart from the other living beings like virus, bacteria, plants, fungi. I will just cite a few ones. Animals or organisms that have or composed of many cells. And there is a scientific word for that. It's multicellular. It's said that the human body is made up of 37 trillion of cells. The other characteristic is that those cells, the animal cells, contain a nucleus and organelles, and they are enclosed within a membrane. There is a word for that too. It's eukaryotic. Animals cannot manufacture their own food, so they have to, obtain their energy by taking in other organic substances, plants or animal matter. And guess what? There is a word for that too. It's called heterotrophic. All animals are motile. It's true. We are seeing a diversity here. There are animals that maybe just do this. But there is motility there. So it's a characteristic of animals. And in most animals, the embryos pass through a stage. I will just say the name, I will not even explain, you can. It's called blastula. It's a very, very early embryonic development. But this is characteristic of all animals. A phylogenetic tree or evolutionary tree is a branching diagram, as you see here. And it shows the evolutionary relations among the biological species. So we are talking about organic life. The term phylogenetics that derives from the Greek phylon, that means tribe, clan, race, and genetikos, that means from the word Genesis, that means origin, source, birth. So it is which clan we belong, which tribe we belong. And this phylogenetic tree is based upon similarities and differences in the species physically and genetically speaking. Okay? And where you see the branches joined together, it indicates having descended from a common ancestor. That's what it means. In this one, it's a different representation of this phylogenetic tree, but this one shows the relationships between species whose genomes had been sequenced as 2006. So it's a very new way of seeing. And as you can see, there is colors. We can talk that the pink, we have the animals, the plants, the fungi, the blue, the bacteria, the green, the archaea. They are domains. The very center represents the last universal ancestor of all life on Earth. The bacteria is the largest domain. They are among the first life forms on Earth, and they are present in most of its habitats. We will find in water, soil, acidic hot springs, radioactive waste, everywhere. The important to say, so that people don't freak out, is that not all bacteria are pathogenic, cause diseases. Most of them are harmless or benefic, like those that live inside us and help us. And here we have a close-up of the phylogenetic tree of the Eukaryota domain, where animals, plants, and fungi are. Again, this tree shows the relationship between species genome, okay? And we are also part of this tree of life. Can you see where we are? We are, closing up, we are here. Yes, you and me, we are squished between mice and eels, okay? But knowing our place in creation is very humbling. And yet, of all the species on Earth, all the animal species on Earth, only Homo sapiens, you and I, have the mental capability or intelligence to appreciate the wonder of life and the knowledge of God. So I have to say something nice about us after saying that we are between the mice and the eels, but it's true. We have this capability, the wonder, the appreciation. This is almost like going back to school, like 5th grade, I think. Animals also can be classified into 2 great or main groups, the vertebrates and the invertebrates. The vertebrates have a back spine, a backbone, an internal skeleton. And we are less than 10% of all animals on Earth. The invertebrates, or a broad collection of animals, groups, they all lack a backbone. Some of them have an exoskeleton, like an ant, for instance. The skeleton is outside. It's hard outside the structure to keep everything inside. Invertebrates are over 90% of all animals on Earth. And we are here with the mammals here. We are vertebrate mammals. The United States Census Bureau estimates that the human world population was over 7 billion in 2012. It's lots of people. And yet our species is just a portion of the 10% of the vertebrates living on Earth. Sometimes I feel outnumbered. We humans have a very complex and beautiful body. However, our human animal body is often inferior to many other animals. When I say inferior, I'm talking that if there were a competition, where performances like speed, eyesight, communication range, size, hearing, were evaluated, we would be outperformed. Let's take, for example, the frequency hearing range. We are here. This is the human auditory field, what we can hear. Our frequency range, the auditory range, is between 20 to 20,000 hertz. It is much less than that of dogs and cats, and we know that. That's how dogs know that when some member of the family is driving a car and just, turn The coroner, they already know. They hear, they recognize the engine. You know, they know when in the building that when someone of the family member opens the door down there, they already are, they can pick up these high frequencies. So, and we are not capable of hearing high and low frequencies, low than 20 hertz and high than 20,000 hertz, like the elephants and the dolphins can. But nonetheless, our bodies are the most suitable vessel of manifestation of our spirits in our evolutionary journey. Just as the bodies of the animals, the other living beings, is for them, you know, are for them. I don't know if you know Caibar Schutel. He was a Brazilian, he was a pharmacist and writer who dedicated his life to Spiritism. And he wrote 17 books, among them Genesis of the Soul. I don't think it is translated yet. But in this book, published in 1924, he wrote, "Men bring in their physical bodies indelible traces of animality, and their soul reflects the instincts of the inferior beings of creation." We will explore the first part of his statement, but I would like to very briefly talk about instinct and intelligence. Instinct is a type of intelligence. It's a type of intelligence that directs the individual to achieve goals, to its colony, to its species. Haroldo Dutra Dias said for me, the most beautiful quote. He said something that explains instinct for me. Instinct is the divine intelligence guiding us. So on that stage, instinct is God guiding us. Intelligence is the reasoning associated with thinking, cognition, intellect. Our spirits, and we learned this in the Spirits book, first develop the instinct, then the intelligence, and later on, inspiration. Inspiration is also a type of intelligence. In plagiarizing Haroldo, I would say that inspiration is the divine intelligence guiding us on a higher level. In the book Mandate of Love by Chico Xavier, Francisco Cano Xavier, he writes, "We humans have already reached the domain of intelligence, and now we are developing our intuitive potentialities. The animals are improving gradually their instincts, seeking for intelligence." This process, you know, in this process, we do not lose what we have acquired. Instead, we add to it. We build upon what we have. So today, humans have instinct. They still guide us. But we already reached the intelligence. We have developed intelligence. So we didn't lose the instinct. We now have instinct and intelligence. And we are starting developing, the inspiration, this other type of intelligence. Let's talk about our bodies. We belong to the order of primates. Primates are animals distinguished for having, hands, feet like hands, and face-forwarding eyes, or forward-facing eyes. And genetic evidence places us within this family tree. Actually, I think we all must pay our respects to Darwin and Wallace, who reached the same conclusion without the help of genetics. So now we know that man, because of genetics, we know that man shares 98% of his genetic code with our closest relatives, the chimpanzees and the bonobos. We have just the chimpanzee here, but the bonobos too. And the strong similarities between us and the great African apes led Darwin to, predict that Africa was the likely place where the human lineage branched off from our common ancestor. And DNA now proves it. But then again, we have connections to other animals as well, not only primates. So we have already seen how we relate with other animals in the phylogenetic tree, our genetic tribe or clan. Now let's see what comparative embryology has to teach us. Comparative embryology is a science that studies the comparisons of different animals in various stages of their embryonic development. And as you can see in this image, fish, amphibians, salamander here, salamander, reptiles represented by a turtle, a chick representing the birds, and then we have a series, hog, calf, rabbit, and humans, series of mammals,